this is speculation. I'm not going to say this on the air. But don't you think the Israelis, the Brits, the Saudis, everybody else who has dirty laundry here is saying to Trump, we can't have this out. This is very problematic for us. At the same time, he's trying to negotiate a peace deal and avert World War III. That's a guess on my part. I haven't talked to him about this.
Well, no, there's no doubt it's not a guess. Obviously, the entire establishment would come down, and so all these allies are bare minimum begging, especially the British, do not release this. I think that's a no-brainer. Why then come out and slap people around and say, stop asking questions?
I'm not sure. First of all, the president's got larger things on his mind at the moment. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal both between the Russians and the Ukrainians. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal, obviously, between the Iranians and Israel. He's got a fragile ceasefire. The economy is cooking like never before. I can only speculate. I'm not going to say this as a statement, but I suspect that given the fact that a former Israeli prime minister, a member of the British royal family, among others, visited the island multiple times, they weren't going there for the weather, that there has to be international pressure to make this issue go away. But at the grassroots, Alex, you know that it's not going to go away. The president knows the American people deserve truth, transparency, and justice, particularly when it what concerns those who think they're above the law. I don't think this administration has lost sight of that. And I think he understands the gravity of the Epstein case. But there's a time to speak and a time to act. There are obviously certain ongoing operations, strategic, legal, international nature, that require patience and precision. And to prematurely release information, as I think Pam Bondi unfortunately did, has not been helpful. But justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice prepared. So
you're saying that's not just a cover story blaming Bondi for getting ahead of her skis. You think legitimately, from what you've seen, she heard about this stuff, talked about this stuff, and then it wasn't accurate?
I think first of all, I think that much of what she put forward, much of which was contained in my 2015 book, she was unaware of previously. So this was news to her. I don't think she recognized that most of the people knew who had visited, some of the dignitaries who had visited the island and so on. I'm not sure she ever knew that Alex Acosta identified Epstein as a CIA
Well, that makes sense. She didn't know the FBI had almost all those files already on their website for years. She just learned of it. They go, here's the file, ma'am. And then she goes out and does that.
One more question.
Richard Lardner from the Associated Press. Mr. Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point in your handling of this case if Mr. Epstein was an intelligence asset of some sort?
So there has been reporting to that effect. And let me say, there's been reporting to a lot of effects in this case, not just now, but over the years. And again, I would hesitate to take this reporting as fact. This was a case that was brought by our office. It was brought based on the facts. And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our guidelines. But I can tell you that a lot of reporting is just going down rabbit holes. A few more questions. A few more questions. Have you asked a question yet?
I have, but I got
okay. How about that in front of you? Yes.
Roger, you have been right there at point blank range with Trump for 47 years. And I hate to see Trump do things that I know are going to really cause a giant Streisand effect. It obviously has now. Patrick McDavid and others, Tucker Carlson, are saying this is an unmitigated disaster. We're not saying that to make it a bigger disaster. We're saying it so that the ongoing disaster stops, like you and I did 2 months ago when Patel and Bongino were on Fox like deer in the headlights, putting out the same ridiculous garbage. We said, look, if national security or whatever, you're going to cover it up. We don't agree with that, but shut up. And then now the pressure campaign from the FBI is happening to a bunch of prominent talk show hosts. I've talked to them. Some have gone public now. They're getting calls saying you're going to be basically kicked out of the White House. You're going to be persona non grata to them if you even have guests on about this. So this is not good, and it's starting to have a little bit of a Nixonian flavor to it, Roger. You were also there for that, the confidant of Richard Nixon. We got 5 minutes to break. We'll do 15 minutes with this next hour, stonezone.com. Thanks for popping on short notice, Roger. How do we deal with this?
Well, Alex, first of all, it's interesting because we reported that Alex Acosta conversation on your show only days ago, and that was a non-answer. That's because Acosta said exactly what I said he said in my 2015 book, The Clintons' War on Women. The longest chapter in that book is on Jeffrey Epstein, and I name his clients, former Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico, former U.S. Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell of Maine, former Israel Prime Minister Ehud Barak, Stephen Hawking, the scientist, and of course Prince Andrew. So we have to assume, first of all, the international pressure on the Trump administration not to engage in full disclosure has to be enormous. However, I think this is really pretty simple. On July 8th, 2019, under the Trump administration, Jeffrey Epstein was charged in Manhattan with 2 crimes. Count 1 was sex trafficking of minors, violation of 18 U.S. Code 1591, and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors, violation of 18 U.S.C. Code 371. But those grand jury testimony is sealed. Also, the search warrants are sealed. Pam Bondi can clear the air here by directing the U.S. attorney, the acting U.S. attorney, the interim U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York to go into federal court and ask the court to unseal those documents. They didn't indict this guy without evidence, and the evidence has to be within those documents. When Kash Patel and Dan Bongino tell you they don't have the evidence, they're not lying. The evidence was destroyed by the previous administration. They can't give you what they do not have. But the court has this information, and they should move aggressively to ask that it be unsealed.
That's a great point. And I don't know if you've talked to the president yet since this firestorm went into high gear yesterday with his statement at the press conference, but what do you think the president should do? Simply call for the court records to be released?
I think he should direct his attorney general, Pam Bondi, again, to direct the U.S. attorney in the Southern District to move in front of a federal judge to unseal all of these documents. They indicted Epstein on the basis of substantial information. It's a very serious indictment. And then you go to the second question of whether Epstein killed himself. Well, we can start on this now, talk about it on the other side. But as you know, the New York medical examiner, Michael Baden, probably one of the most respected pathologists in the country, a guy who's looked at 1,000 hanging cases, examined Epstein's body and said that his injuries were not consistent with him hanging himself. I don't know how you just discard that as a fact. We also know that 2 days prior to Epstein's death, he retained a new criminal defense attorney, David Schoen, reached a retainer agreement with him on a Thursday to take over his criminal defense. In America, everybody, even the most heinous criminals, are entitled to a criminal defense.
And he was reportedly telling people like his brother he would be getting out soon. Stay there. Let's do 50 more minutes. I want to talk big picture with this. And why you think Trump responded so angrily to this being brought up when he'd been saying he wants the stuff released in the past. Stay right there. Roger Stone is our guest. All right, Roger, there's a lot of other stuff on the radar screen. And after you leave, I'm going to go through all these clips of Patrick McDavid and Tucker and others saying this is a disaster. I mean, I can tell you that I overall agree with what you're saying here. My big concern is who is advising, who is coming up. Why is it good to have Bongino and Patel and Pam Bondi and now Trump going out and contradicting stuff that they said in the last few years, in the last few months? If U.S. intelligence is involved and they've hidden most of the evidence and destroyed it, and Trump wants to move on and try to save the economy and stop the current human trafficking, why not just say that? Why freak out on reporters? Why come out and wag their fingers at people and say, you need to stop talking about this? I mean, anybody knows that if you tell people don't look into something or don't talk about it, I mean, that it's going to have the exact opposite effect. So great advice. Hey, you've got, him being indicted in New York. You've got the court case. There's the evidence there of the human trafficking. How can Ghislaine be in jail for human trafficking? But now this new memo says that there is no human trafficking. I mean, this is just preposterous. What else should Trump do?
I think he has to make a clean abreast of it. I suspect, this is speculation, I'm not going to say this on the air, but don't you think the Israelis, the Brits, the Saudis, everybody else who has dirty laundry here is saying to Trump, we can't have this out. This is very problematic for us. At the same time, he's trying to negotiate a peace deal and avert World War III. That's a guess on my part. I haven't talked to him about this.
Well, no, there's no doubt it's not a guess. Obviously, the entire establishment would come down, and so all these allies are bare minimum begging, especially the British, do not release this. I think that's a no-brainer. Why then come out and slap people around and say, stop asking questions?
I'm not sure. First of all, the president's got larger things on his mind at the moment. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal, both between the Russians and the Ukrainians. He's trying to negotiate a peace deal, obviously, between the Iranians and Israel. He's got a fragile ceasefire. The economy is cooking like never before. I can only speculate. I'm not going to say this as a statement, but I suspect, given the fact that a former Israeli prime minister, a member of the British royal family, among others, visited the island multiple times, they weren't going there for the weather, that there has to be international pressure to make this issue go away. But at the grassroots, Alex, you know that it's not going to go away. The president knows the American people deserve truth, transparency, and justice, particularly when it concerns those who think they're above the law. I don't think this administration has lost sight of that. And I think he understands the gravity of the Epstein case. But there's a time to speak and a time to act. There are obviously certain ongoing operations, strategic, legal, international nature, that require patience and precision. And to prematurely release information, as I think Pam Bondi unfortunately did, has not been helpful. But justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice prepared. So
you're saying that's not just a cover story blaming Bondi for getting ahead of her skis. You think legitimately, from what you've seen, she heard about this stuff, talked about this stuff, and then it wasn't accurate?
I think first of all, I think that much of what she put forward, much of which was contained in my 2015 book, she was unaware of previously. So this was news to her. I don't think she recognized that most of the people knew who had visited, some of the dignitaries who had visited the island and so on. I'm not sure she ever knew that Alex Acosta identified Epstein as a CIA
operative. That makes sense. She didn't know the FBI had almost all those files already on their website for years. She just learned of it. They go, here's the file, ma'am. And then she goes out and does that. Look, the Democrat globalists are open satanic pedophiles with their fingerprints all over everything evil. They want to put me in prison. They want to put Roger in prison. They want to cut your son's genitals off, your daughter's breast off. We know they're the enemy. They're attacking ICE facilities, shooting police, burning things down, barely even hitting the news. Democrats are openly in the news saying, we want blood. Our constituents want blood. We're going to start confrontations with the feds so they kill a bunch of us. I mean, the Podesta plan is now in action. I want to hit some of that with Roger Stone. And last night I shot a report. When this broke, FBI launches criminal investigation of John Brennan, James Comey, DOJ sources tell Fox News. And the first thing everybody asked was, well, is this to change the subject from the Epstein, what looks like whitewash operation that's going on? And I said, I'm not sure, but the timing's interesting. But I said, regardless, we've been hearing this criminal investigation is going on. We've been seeing Trump call them out, and we've been seeing the documents released by the CIA last week from Ratcliffe that are smoking gun that Roger Stone and General Flynn and Trump and I live. So I know we first reported on it, Roger and I, in 2017. We figured it all out before we knew the name Crossfire Hurricane. And now you have the Director of National Intelligence a few months ago releasing all those documents as well. This is open and shut. Not just that, they knew Hillary was cooking up a fake Russia dossier to election meddle and then try to have a coup once Trump was elected based on lies to call all of his constituents Russian agents, not just the president, and then persecute us with the power of the state, but that it was directed by Obama and by Brennan and Clapper and Comey, the same Comey, 1 month after he was put in 2013, who then started a national security investigation under orders of Obama on me. That's now declassified. So, yeah, I need Trump to succeed. I need Trump to be the real deal. And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm not going to be apologetic for any of it. We don't know enough, but there's a lot of international deals being made. I'm going to get into Epstein, the really hardcore stuff, and the firestorm over it with Tucker saying it could cause a revolution, Patrick McDavid, in a few minutes when Roger leaves us. But front and center, we need to take down the Democrat globalist crime syndicate that's stolen trillions of dollars and is funding radical Islam and opening the borders and promoting pedophilia. And this is a big deal. Trump has said he wants prosecutions, not just to these guys, but to Mayorkas for human trafficking. So that's good. And I'll tell you what will make everybody, really be happy and also feel a lot safer, including Trump, who's the big target. They already tried to kill him. We know it's these guys. Is indictments of the globalist kingpins. And you and I have said years ago, before Trump got back in, the main targets who Trump should go after first is Comey, Brennan, and Clapper. You get them, the whole house of cards falls. So this is a big deal. Do you think this is actually really going on? From my sources, I said months ago, in fact, you can look it up, Alex Jones on X. There is a criminal investigation of Comey, Clapper, and Brennan. You can pull it up. I have sources, and I said specifically, they're the first three that they're going after. You can find that. So, Roger, what do you know?
Look, while I thought that the report by CIA Director Radcliffe the other day was good, it was the most shallow reveal of the version of the truth. And I think it conceals a great deal and that the deep state still is protected. I think it was done to preempt a far more stunning report by the House Intelligence Committee under leadership of Congressman Rick Crawford. Crawford's report is supposedly far more devastating, far more damning, but it includes classified documents that will require the declassification from the President of the United States. So this has been moving along on a parallel track. I reject this idea that this is being done to distract from the Epstein situation. I think the FBI investigation into Comey and Brennan is correctly based on this new CIA report. But even that report, I think, is lacking. In fact, everything in that report had already been reported by the great Lee Smith, who wrote The Plot Against the President. Most of it were things we already knew. So the fact that John Brennan insisted that the Steele dossier, which was a fugazi, was a fraud paid for by Hillary Clinton, was included in President Obama's Intelligence Committee Community Assessment Report was convenient because Obama was waiting for it. Obama knew it was a fraud as well. Andrew Weissman, the most corrupt prosecutor in federal history, knew all the way back to his days as the general counsel to the FBI that the Steele dossier was a fraud. But they used it anyway. And I now think, and I continue to think, that Brennan not only did this, but he clearly lied before Congress about it. Now, since they charged me with lying to Congress, despite the fact that any misstatement I made to Congress was immaterial, none of it hid any underlying crime, Brennan should, at a minimum, be charged with lying to Congress under oath because he lied very specifically about the circumstances under which the Steele dossier was included in this intelligence community report. I think that it is vitally important that those who tried to destroy President Trump, tried to destroy General Flynn, tried to destroy me, tried to destroy you, Alex, these people should be prosecuted. And John Durham did kind of a half-assed job in his report. First of all, why did he take 5 years to tell us what we already knew? Well, that's because the statute of limitations, if it viewed narrowly, would have run out, and therefore Hillary and Podesta and Robbie Mook and Jake Sullivan, as well as Comey, Brennan, McCabe, Rosenstein, would not technically be indictable, except the crime of treason has no expiration date, has no statute of limitations. And I think that there's a broader indictment here possible against the ringleaders of the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, the single greatest abuse of power, in which they used the full authority of the U.S. government, as well as the capabilities of our intelligence agencies, utilizing two fraudulent pieces of evidence, the Steele dossier and the false claim that the Russians hacked the DNC, for which there is no evidence or proof whatsoever. It's a figment of John Brennan's evil imagination. So I think they need to be brought to justice. I think this is very important, not only to the president, but to the people in the country who will finally see that we have accountability and we don't have a two-tiered justice system. I was charged with lying to Congress when I didn't lie to Congress. John Brennan did lie to Congress about something quite material. He should be charged.
Well, I mean, Clapper famously did. It said the NSA has never spotted an American citizen inside the U.S.
And that they had no metadata collection program, which, of course, Edward Snowden proved was a blatant lie. I think General Flynn was the one who said it, but he's right. If you indict Clapper, he will turn and testify against all of the other rats.
Absolutely. In closing, over at StoneZone.com, in general, you've known Trump 47 years. From my sources, many others, and just watching him, he's way more focused, way more zen, but also more, I would say, not even angry, just way more serious, and also very, very confident. I would almost call it fatalistic in that he's committed to what he's doing. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now is that where whatever he thinks is the most important thing, whatever he thinks the focus is, he then gets mad at anything else he sees as a distraction. Because when I saw that shocking press conference, we got so mad about the Epstein thing, I said, wow, it looks like he really is upset about this coming out. But then I started realizing the last few months, more and more, I've seen him on other issues where he's like, I don't want to hear about that. This is the issue. World War III and energy and jobs and the fentanyl and the border and so you know Trump well. How would you describe the Trump 2.0 that we can all see compared to the way he was before?
Extraordinarily focused. And by the way, Alex, he's right. I'm not trying to minimize the Epstein thing, but a dead sex trafficker who's no longer exploiting and torturing underage children, while it's important, it's not as important as averting world war, which is what he's trying to do in two different theaters. I'm not saying we shouldn't have full disclosure on Epstein. We definitely should. But when you consider the fact that we have 30 million illegals in the country, that's the number I think is correct, and we probably have sleeper cells in the country, and they brought a huge number of weaponry into the country, not to mention fentanyl. He's dealing with some huge issues that are hurting the country today. Thank God that Jeffrey Epstein is dead because he can't hurt any more children. That's a good thing. I'm not trying to minimize it, but the president is focused on the big picture challenges to the country, and he's making very real progress on tariffs. The biggest tax cuts in American history have just been extended. 88% of the American people will not pay taxes on their Social Security payments, payments to them. We now have the funding for ICE and for the deportations, and we can build the Strategic Defense Initiative, the Golden Dome, to protect our country from incoming ICBM.
Roger, I know you got to go, and now Bassett says they're set to get $300 billion now. The tariffs are working, but let me ask you about this. I mentioned this just brief, a couple minutes on this. You have two ICE facilities in Texas attacked, gunfire, cop shot, anti-terrorist. but the FBI will still not designate them as a terror group. You've got all these other Democrats running around. There needs to be blood. Democrat lawmakers tell Axios that their constituents want violence and want to elicit a response from Trump so they can play victim and have a civil war. That's the Podesta plan. What do you make of this and their no kings thing fizzling out to a great extent? But it appears they're still trying to get a civil war going.
I think they would be very, very unwise to test Donald J. Trump. You notice that unlike when we had the Antifa BLM riots during his first term, and he was persuaded to let governors make decisions about how to deal with that, as soon as you had problems in Los Angeles, he mobilized the National Guard. He also sent in the Marines. Those who think that they can mount an insurrection are going to see that insurrection crushed. The first responsibility of the President of the United States is to maintain order. That is his responsibility under the Constitution. This president has already demonstrated that he will do that. So those who are planning violence, they better think twice. Donald Trump is not to be trifled with. He will be the law and order president, and he will maintain order and protect the American people.
Roger Stone, StoneZone.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. God bless you.